Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasa Tato Jayamudiraye. We're reading from the Srimad Bhāgavatam, Canto number 8, Chapter 18, Lord Vaman, the Dwarf Incarnation. This chapter describes how Lord Vamandev appeared and how he went to the sacrificial arena of Maharaj Bali, who received him well and fulfilled his desire for offering him benedictions. Lord Vamandev appeared in this world from the womb of Aditi, completely equipped with conch shell, disc, club, and lotus. His bodily hue was blackish, and he was dressed in yellow garments. Lord Vishnu appeared at an auspicious moment on Shravana Dwadashi, when the Abhijit star had risen. At that time, in all the three worlds, including the higher planetary systems, outer space, and this earth, all the demigods, the cows, the brahmanas, and even the seasons were happy because of God's appearance. Therefore, this auspicious day is called Vijaya. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has a Satchit Ananda body, appeared as the son of Kashyapa and Aditi, both his parents were very astonished. After his appearance, the Lord assumed the form of a dwarf, Vaman. All the great sages expressed their jubilation, and with Kashyapa Muni before them, they performed the birthday ceremony of Lord Vamana. At the time of Lord Vamadev's sacred thread ceremony, he was honored by the sun god, Brahaspati, the goddess presiding over the planet Earth, the deity of the heavenly planets, his mother, Lord Brahma, Kuvera, the 7 rishis, and others. Lord Vamandev then visited the sacrificial arena on the northern side of the Narmada River, at the field known as Bhrigu Kacha, where the brahmanas of the Bhrigu dynasty were performing yagyas. Wearing a belt made of munja straw, an upper garment of deerskin, and a sacred thread, and carrying in his hands a danda, an umbrella, and a water pot, kamandalu, Lord Vamandev appeared in the sacrificial arena of Maharaj Bali. Because of his transcendentally effulgent presence, all the priests were diminished in their prowess, and thus they all stood from their seats and offered prayers to Lord Vamandev. Even Lord Shiva accepts on his head the Ganges water generated from the toe of Lord Vamandev. Therefore, after washing the Lord's feet, Bali Maharaj immediately accepted the water from the Lord's feet on his head and felt that he and his predecessors had certainly been glorified. Then Bali Maharaj inquired of Lord Vamandev's welfare and requested the Lord to ask him for money, jewels, or anything else he might desire. Just checking on oxygen situation here. What is the level on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being fully oxygenated? Is the door open? The front door's open? Back door open? We have nothing against air here at ISV because it enriches the brain. It's a machine that has to have oxygen and glucose. Text number 1. Sūta Goswami said, after Lord Brahma had thus spoken, glorifying the Supreme Lord's activities and prowess, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is never subject to death like an ordinary living being, appeared from the womb of Aditi. His 4 hands were decorated with a conch shell, club, lotus, and disc. He was dressed in yellow garments, and his eyes appeared like the petals of a blooming lotus. Purport. The word Amrita Bhu is significant in this verse. The Lord sometimes appears like an ordinary child taking birth, But this does not mean that he is subject to birth, death, or old age. One must be very intelligent to understand the appearance and activities of the Supreme Lord in his incarnations. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.9. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha. One should try to understand that the Lord's appearance and disappearance and his activities are all divyam, or transcendental. The Lord has nothing to do with material activities. One who understands the appearance, disappearance, and activities of the Lord is immediately liberated. And after giving up his body, he never again has to accept a material body, but is transferred to the spiritual world. Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mam eti sorjuna. The body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, blackish in complexion, was free from all inebrities. Somebody look up that word, inebrities, and figure out how you're supposed to pronounce it. Huh? Some people say inebrieties, but then again, if you have a Webster's dictionary, it tells you the translation. Don't mind, but this has been bugging me for a long time. Inebriety? Thank you. Who said that? Oxford said it? Inebriety.
Inebriety.
Inebriety. And could we have the etymology of the word, please? Pass the mic, please, to the research team.
Inebriety is a noun, and it means state or habit of being intoxicated. From the early 15th century, from Latin ebrietem, which means drunkenness, intoxication, from ebrius, drunk, full, sated with drink, and it's from an uncertain origin, but also from Proto-Indo-European, hey-ro, and the root hey, which means to drink.
Thank you. Where was the word? Where was it? Takes two. The body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, blackish in complexion, was free from all inebrieties. There must be an older meaning to it as well. Maybe you look it up in the OED, Oxford English Dictionary. It tells the history of the word. Of course, you may have to subscribe. I'm not sure. His lotus face, decorated with earrings resembling sharks, appeared very beautiful, and on his bosom was the mark of Srivatsa. If anybody's at home and you have an OED, please look it up, inebriety, and see what the history of the word is. He wore bangles on his wrists, armlets on his arms, a helmet on his head, a belt on his waist, a sacred thread across his chest, and ankle bells decorating his lotus feet. An uncommonly beautiful garland of flowers decorated his bosom, and because the flowers were extremely fragrant, a large group of bees, making their natural humming sounds, invaded them for honey. When the Lord appeared, wearing the Kaustuba gem on his neck, his effulgence vanquished the darkness and the home of Prajapati Kashyapa. At that time, there was happiness in all directions, in the reservoirs of water like the rivers and oceans, and in the core of everyone's heart. The various seasons displayed their respective qualities, and all living entities in the upper planetary systems, in outer space, and on the surface of the earth were jubilant. The demigods, the cows, the brahmanas, and the hills and mountains were all filled with joy. On the day of Shravana Dvadashi, the 12th day of the bright fortnight of the month of Bhadra, when the moon came into the lunar mansion Shravana at the auspicious moment of Abhijit. The Lord appeared in this universe. Considering the Lord's appearance very auspicious, all the stars and planets from the sun to Saturn were magnificently charitable. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, an expert astrologer, explains the word nakshatra taradya. The word nakshatra means the stars. The word tara in this context refers to the planets, and adya means the first one specifically mentioned. Among the planets, the first is Surya, the sun, not the moon. Therefore, according to the Vedic version, the modern astronomers' proposition that the moon is nearest to the earth should not be accepted. The chronological order in which people all over the world refer to the days of the week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, corresponds to the Vedic order of the planets, and thus circumstantiates the Vedic version. Could you look up the word circumstantiate? Apart from this, when the Lord appeared, the planets and stars became situated very auspiciously according to astrological calculations to celebrate the birth of the Lord. Circumstantiate.
Circumstantiate is a verb, and it means set forth or support with circumstances or details.
And break it down, please, where it came from. Circum means like completely or around, like parikrama, something to go around completely. Circumstand means like understand, or stita, like a place where you're situated. Circumstantiate is just a way to make it into a noun.
Okay.
Circumstantiation.
Circumstance, the word circum is around, and then stare, which means to stand. So to stand, make, or be firm.
So circumstantiate, the word is used in this, corresponds to the Vedic order of the planets and thus circumstantiates the Vedic version. So it's a way that is recommended that one go about coming to a conclusion is to circumstantiate. You have to look from all angles. For instance, in the Brahma Sutras, the author makes a statement and then gives the Purva Paksha, and means that you argue against your own statement, and then you present the flaws in the argument against the statement so that there's a full circumstantiation of the topic, which means to come to a siddhanta, which means that you're perfectly pointed, that you understand exactly what it is and also what it isn't. And therefore, in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami says, Siddhanta bolya chita nakara alash iha hoite krishna lage shudrid manosh, which means that one shouldn't be lazy to circumstantiate the points that are made in the Shastra, because, he says, if you take the time, then shudrid manosh, your mind becomes very determined and steady, because you know what is what. If you're unclear about various aspects of the philosophy, then you may harbor some doubt and think, well, how could that be? Maybe I'll go somewhere else. But if you take some time to circumstantiate things, then you become very solid in your practice. Sudrid means fully determined. So he said that's really necessary to take time. So tachchadadhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pasyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shruta grihitaya. We find in the first canto, second chapter of the Bhāgavatam, which verse is that? Tachchadadhana munayo. We know what 1:1:11 is, and we also know what 1:2:11 is, but what is tachchadadhana munayo? Where is it situated? 12. It's the next verse. So who knows which verse is 1, 2, 11? That's right. It's a famous verse. Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajñānamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti śābde. So this is a mention that it is said by the authorities that the absolute truth, advaya gyan tattva, is one without a second, but he has varieties. And those varieties are known as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Iti means it is said. We've heard from authorities. Iti śābde. Iti is like quotation marks. So it's said by them. And then the next verse is important. It says, Tashtradhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pasyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktashuta grihitaya. Which means that, word for word, tat, that. Shradhana, seriously inquisitive. So interestingly that, like in the Bhāgavatam, when Sūta Goswami was promoted to the point of the leader of all the sages, Naimiṣāraṇya, he was called Ugraśravā. And this word Ugraśravā means, you know Ugranṛsiṁha? You know Ugrakarma? It's like fierce, incredibly heavy. Ugra. And Ugraśravā means somebody who's just totally leaned into hearing. Ugraśravā. They just made it their whole existence is to hear the Vedic wisdom. As also mentioned in the Bhāgavatam later on, tasmād guruṁ prapadyeta, jijñāsuḥ śreya uttamam, śābde pare niṣṇātaṁ, brahmaṇy upaśamāśrayam. One who's qualified to speak about the absolute truth is one who's śābde brahma, niṣṇātaṁ. They've taken a dip in the ocean of transcendental knowledge. They actually swam around in there. And then they come out like drenched. So Ugraśravā is a very important point. Shradhana, as seriously inquisitive, means somebody who actually leans into hearing and hears all the relevant topics in a faithful way, faithful to one's lineage and one's guru. The mood is important also. Not that I just go here, there, and everywhere collecting information. In fact, there's an admonition given in the Krishna Bhajanamrita by Narahari Chakravarti, Narahari Sakar Thakur, whose samadhi you'll definitely run into when you go to the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan, because when you're doing the circumambulation, his samadhi's right there at the caddy corner, was a good word to use, I think, here, to Rupa and Sanatana's samadhi, just going around the corner. It's right there at the end. You can offer obeisances. He wrote a book called Sri Krishna Bhajanamrita. In it, he talks about the mood of the devotee, how we should appreciate all Vaishnavas. One of the ways he talks about it is that the Ganga has ripples and little waves sometimes. And he says whether the ripple is big or small, it's still the Ganga. So whether a devotee is big or small, in estimation of the society, and say, well, that's just a little devotee, or there's a big devotee here, but still it's Ganga water, still is worshipable. And he goes on to say that when one accepts guidance in the parampara system and accepts a guru, that even when one goes and takes information from others, that he should bring that information back to the guru and say, you know, this is what I collected, and offer it first to the guru, and then the guru also substantiates, is accepted in the right mood. So he said that in that way, one should carefully tune oneself to the mood of the sampradaya. So in this verse, Shradhana, seriously inquisitive, also means the mood in which one collects. Because, as is mentioned in the Shastra, that if one is faithful to Guru and Krishna, then all the imports of Vedic knowledge become available. Does anybody know the verse? So take the mic and you can say it.
Yasya deve parabhaktir yata deve tata guru tasya katita hyarte prakashante mahatmanaha.
Can you say the meaning basically?
To those who are faithful to both the Supreme Lord and they have full faith in the Supreme Lord and the spiritual master, all the imports of the Vedic truths are revealed.
Yes, and we find this also with Sūta Goswami is mentioned in the first canto, first chapter about Sūta Goswami. What verse am I thinking? 7, 8. What's the first word?
I don't have to find out.
1. Canto 1, chapter 1, text number.
To the loyal disciple.
Huh? Thank you. Vetatam saumya tat sarvam tat vatas tadunugrahat bruyu snignaśa śreya guravo guyamapyuta. So this verse is number 8. Number 8. Now we know what 118 is too, right? It says Vetatvam. So this is the sages at Naimiṣāraṇya who are speaking to Sūta Goswami as they've invited him to sit down after his father was killed by Balaram. Balaram detected the wrong mood. And in the first speaker, Romaharshan, and he executed him with a little kusha straw. He just picked up a little kusha blade and he went ding, and then all the sages said, wait a minute, we already endowed him with our blessings for a long life. And then they looked through the manual and they said, it's transferable. So they gave it to his son. And then glorifying the son, they said, Veta tvam saumya tat sarvam tat vatas tadunugrahat bruyu snigdhasya shishyasya guravo kuyamapyuta. So this explains why Sūta Goswami was qualified to speak before all these sages. So the first word is Veta. You are well conversant. So the way one becomes well conversant with spiritual knowledge is to listen. Tachadadhana. One has to be listen faithfully. That means that you're open, you have an open mind, open heart. Prabhupada recommends this in the Bhagavad Gita. When you first start reading the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says, at least theoretically accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is a nice trick. Because if a person who's maybe skeptical then opens the Bhagavad Gita, says, what is all this? And there is no God. And they say, okay, no problem. But just theoretically accept it for now. And then listen in that vein, with that mood. So Veta, then if one listens in that mood for a long time, then the sound vibration goes in the ear and it fills up the heart, and one naturally becomes conversant in the Vedic knowledge, because the human body is perfectly equipped for this type of hearing, that if you hear submissively, then you'll learn everything. No need for any extra paraphernalia. Then Twang, your honor, they're addressing him in a respectful way. They say Saumya. That Saumya means gentle, pure and simple. This is the mood. Tat, those. Sarvam, all. Tatvata, in fact. Tat, there. Anugrahat, by their favor. So this word anugrahat. So graha means a grabber, like the stars are called the grahas, because by the force of the stars, we're influenced to see the world in a particular way. So at a certain time in at certain eras in your life, when there are influences of the stars that come in a certain way, then we see the world through that lens. And that's why we're being grabbed, pulled along by the modes of nature that are being projected through various forces in the universe, especially the controllers of the universe. And so anugrahat means one who takes one. Anu means to follow, and graha means to grab. So if you grab someone and make them follow you, this is anugraha. Because you're taking them somewhere better. Like if somebody's about to get hit by a train and you grab them and you pull them off the tracks, then you'll be on TV. Someone will get it on their cell phone and then it's like, wow, he grabbed them, pulled them off the tracks. What a great hero. So those who grab people from the material world and pull them off the dangerous tracks where they're about to get smashed by death, and they say, no, come this way. This is anugraha. So he received the favor of his gurus. They favored him because of his mood, and therefore they pulled him along. So this is also mentioned by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says that tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. Find somebody who's already filled up with knowledge, and so they know they have tattvadarshina. They see tattva. Tat means that which is real. And tat is cognated in English with that. You just put an H in it and it's that. What is it? That is a demonstrative pronoun. You're pointing at something and say that. Somebody who's tattvadarshi means somebody who understands what's real and what's not real. Vedanta is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Nasato vidite bhavo, nabhavo vidite sita, uvayorapi drishton tas tvanayos tattvadarshi. Again, the tattvadarshi is there. And it's Krishna's mentioning some energies, they're insubstantial, they're wispy, they're always changing, they're called bhava. They're always becoming something else. You go to get it and it's like, wait, what? Where'd it go? I was just a young man, now I'm an old man. Then there's everything changes in front of our eyes. And this is called bhava, the world where everything's becoming something else. It's always in the stage of becoming. And then there's another energy that one can identify. It's another tattva, another category of energy, which is always the same. It's substantial. It's something you could depend on, unlike the material world. So nasato vidite bhavo, nabhavo vidite sata, ubayor api dushton tas. Ubayor means both of these things. A tattvadarshi means he knows the difference between the two. He doesn't get faked out and think, oh, I'll set up shop here in the material world and everything will be fine. What do you think? Not a good idea. I'll live happily ever after. Oh, no, you won't. Even I knew that as a kid. My parents would read the end of the book, say, they lived happily ever after. I said, wait a minute. This doesn't sound right. It's like, no, forget about it. Just go to bed. So a tattvadarshi doesn't do that. Tattvadarshi says, no, let's analyze it. Let's actually look at what's real and what's not real. So if one has the wherewithal to understand these two things, then you can approach that person who knows what's real, where everything comes from. And tadvidi pranipatena, go there with an open mind, in submissiveness. Pariprashnena, be inquisitive. The word question comes from the word quest. Quest, actually, if you trace back the word etymologically, it means the search for the Holy Grail. And there's a whole story about that. You know, how humankind, people, they want to find that one place, that elixir they can take where everything will be okay. Because we have a sense that everything should be okay, but it's just not. You know, why are people disappearing? Why is everything changing? Why can't I have what I want? It's because you didn't find the Holy Grail. And so a quest really means to search that thing out. That we hear in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, now rupamasyeha tato palabhyate nanto nachadir nachasamprachishta ashvatamenam suvarudamulam asanga shastrena dridhena chitva tatat padam tat parimargitavyam yasmin katana nirvatanti bhuya tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yatak praviti prashita parani. That just educate yourself about what's temporary, this material world. Admit that you're lost. Don't be all puffed up. It's like, no, I'll find my way on my own. Don't do that. Narupa maseha, you don't know where you are. You're lost. And so he said, then become a little pessimistic about the material world and don't invest in it. And so you leave that behind. This is tapas. Like, no more. I'll just cut this off. I'll look somewhere else. Once you do that, he said, then you have tatak param tat. Now you can look for tat, that which you can point to, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Param Sada, Pashanti suryo diviva chakshra tatante vipraso vipanyavo jagravamsaha samindate vishnu yat paramam param. You're here, but now you're free to look towards that abode that always exists. And parimargitavya means you make the journey, you make the quest. Now you can go for it and back to the source of everything. So when you come pariprashnena, when you come with questions which are specifically so that you can make this quest, like it's a hero's journey. You came here, you got lost. Okay, now cut your losses, and as they say, if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. Then make your great journey towards that which actually exists, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when you ask a question or somebody who's already knows the categories of knowledge and can direct you there, then this is pariprashnena. Ask those questions, not questions that give you not inane questions that give you information that's not helpful for going back to Godhead. Sevaya means that you should feel some gratitude towards that person and give some service, because then their heart will open up and they'll give you everything. And tadvidi pariprashnena sevaya uprakshate jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. So these are 3 jewels you can wear around your wrist, or you can make a necklace. And those are the jewel of submissive inquiry. And then the second one is to ask good questions. And the third is to offer seva. And if you keep these 3 in mind, these powerful gems, then you can understand everything when you ask the right person. So, Vetatom somya tat sarvam tatvatas tadanugrahat bruyu snigdasya shishyasya. We're lost. Guravo guyamapyuta. It's back to the verse I think we were talking about, where Sūta Goswami is being exalted as somebody who's gone through this process. And so, anugrahat, by the favor of those great sages, bruyu snigdasya, he's submissive, shishyasya, he was a great disciple. Gurava, the spiritual masters, guyam, they've given all their secrets to you. And apiyuta, you're endowed with this comprehensive knowledge because you were submissive, and your gurus were anugrahat. They just pulled you along because they liked you a lot. Om Tat Sat. So, Tachstradadhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya. This is 128. And we're just finishing the point. That Tachstradadhana, you should be Shradadhana, be very eager to hear and submissive, open to hearing. Tachstradadhana, you go back to 128. Munayo, the muni, the intelligent person, tatvatas, tadanugrahat. 1 to 12, sorry. That's right, it comes right after 11. Jnana vairagya yuktaya. So you need these to fortify yourself on the path. Gyan means knowledge. So if you have knowledge, which means to know the difference between matter and spirit, but you don't have vairagya, which means detachment, then what are you going to do with that knowledge? And if you have detachment, but you don't have knowledge, you don't know how to employ that sense of detachment in a proper way. So you have to have these 2 things together. They go together. Jnana vairagya yuktaya. So you're able to utilize these 2 things. And then pashyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shruta grihitaya. Please go down just a little bit to the end of the word for word. Means that bhaktya shruta grihitaya. You have to be thoughtful, you have to have knowledge, and you have to be detached. Fortunately, we learn that these things come naturally by chanting Hare Krishna and performing devotional service. But it's also, and Prabhupada emphasizes that you should hear the literature written by Krishna and by the Goswamis, so that you're fully fortified with knowledge. Otherwise, it's very, very easy to have your devotional service morph into some other mood. And there are lots of moods that developed after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the world. Some where in over a dozen different kind of deviant ideas and moods for practicing that had to be sorted out later by the great acharyas. So I'll just take a few reflections to make the conversation, to make it a conversation and to make it more stimulating and interesting. Is that possible? Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. There is a very nice verse from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. You may know this, and I'm just repeating for your pleasure. Similar to the Snigdasya Shishyasya verse. It says, the Vedas say that to a loyal disciple, one may speak the confidential secret. Therefore, O most fortunate one, now please hear the glories of Goloka.
Can you say the word for that?
I don't have the Sanskrit.
It doesn't have it, okay.
It's
read
from
it,
the Brihad
translation
Bhagavatam
again, one more time.
The Vedas say that to a loyal disciple, one may speak the confidential secret. Therefore, O most fortunate one, now please hear the glories of Goloka. I'll find the Sanskrit.
Okay. Thank you for entering that into evidence. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you so much for the class. I really like the point about Ugraśravā. I also used to think, what does that mean? But this is really nice. Fiercely attached to hearing, or intensely attached to hearing in the disciplic succession. I have a question, Guru Maharaj, regarding the chronology. So we study that Lord Balram killed Romharshan, and Sūta Goswami took over to recite Srimad Bhāgavatam. But Srimad Bhāgavatam was already spoken by Sūta Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. And by that time, Lord Balram and Krishna, they had already left the planet when this was spoken to Parikshit Maharaj. Even the Arjuna, even the Pandavas had left. So now, how do we understand that in the present context, Lord Balram has killed Romharshan, and then Sūta Goswami is taking over the recitation?
Does anybody have a ready answer? Because otherwise we could research and get back to you. I'm not so good at chronology. Mark it and we'll come back with a suitable answer.
Thank you.
Yes? Here, he has it.
Maharaj, I had a reflection. You mentioned that bhava means everything that changes. So I was just reflecting that, like you also mentioned, that one cannot step into the same river twice, or our body is also continuously changing in which we are staying. So I was just reflecting, bhava means everything that changes.
Yes, that's true. Just following up on these couple of points, when I was in Italy and I was talking about something, I think japa at some point, and I said it was important to have, the translator, heard what I was saying and came up with the word ferocious. And in Italian, I think I remember it's feroce. Feroce japa. So you have ferocious japa, Ugra japa. What's your japa? What's your secret? Ugra japa, feroce japa. And also hearing, you should be feroce shravana. Feroce shravana, you should hear ferociously. And then you become Ugraśravā, like a ferocious hearer. And then you had said about, bhava. And this point comes up again and again, because even in the first verse of the Srimad Bhāgavatam, we hear muyanti yat surayaha, that even the devas get faked out by the material world. Said, so you better be careful when you're looking around, that they see all the elements mixing together, and because the supreme magician is behind them all, Parasya Shaktir Vivadaiva Shruyate Swabhavika Jnana Balakriya Cha. One of the points about Bhagavan is that he has unlimited Shakti. Eka Desha Stitasyagnir Joshna Vistaraniyata Parasya Brahmana Shaktis Yatedam Akilam Jagat. That just as a fire or the sun is in one place, but it manifests its energies everywhere. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has unlimited potencies that are working inconceivably. And so that his material energy appears to be one thing, but it's another, and it's constantly changing and morphing. So the opening statement in the Srimad Bhāgavatam, which we should look at, just look at the first verse. He says that, from the translation, we'll see that the elements of the material world are constantly shifting and they look like something else. And therefore you shouldn't... Srimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 1, Verse 1. Chapter 1, Verse 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadhyasa yaton bayad itaratash charte swabigna swarad. Teni brahma hridaya kave muhyanti yatsuraya. Tejo vari mirdam. That's the part. Tejo vari mirdam. You see tejo, fire, vari mirdam. So let's look at the translation. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire and land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, who is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. So there's this sleight of hand here in the material world that one should rise above. And one of the verses given by the Yogendras, the Navi-Yogendras, it's actually by Krishna to Uddhava in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhāgavatam, where he says that Shruti Pratyakshamaitiyam Anumanam Chatushtayam Praneshva Vanarastanad. What's the last line? Praneshvana Badnastanad. Anyway, Vikalpatsa Virajite means that you should use 4 kinds of evidence to convince yourself that the material world is not a substantial place. So, avastanat means, so stanat we already talked about, it means like it's steady, it's solid, it's a place you can stand. But the material world is avastanat. Avastanat means you can't stand here. You ever get moved along? It's very agitating. I was outside distributing books in New York City once. I had a little trolley I was pulling along. And it was way down on the sidewalk. The stores were way up on steps, way up high. And I was just distributing along this little strip. And one of the owners came down and said, "Could you please move?" Still bugs me. I'm trying to get over it. I forgive him. Hare Krishna. But we're always getting moved along in the material world. It's avasthanat. You can't stand here. Someone will come along and go, could you move? You know, it's like, wait a minute. I worked hard. I got a degree. I made $2 million. I have it in the bank. And it's like, can you move now? It's like, but that's mine. It's like, not anymore. Get out of here. And that's the material world. So he said, use that kind of evidence to convince yourself. Avasthanat. Sa virajite. If virajite means take a little chill pill, buddy. Don't get all wrapped up in this temporary material world. It's changing all the time. So he said, Shruti, you should hear about it from the Shastra. Hear the Shastra. The Shastra is wiser than you are, is the implication. Take their word for it. They know what they're talking about. Don't get all like, oh yeah, wait a minute, what about science? I know everything. And then Shruti pratyaksham, see for yourself. Pratyaksha means take a look around and just see. Don't be pashyanapina pashyati. This is something that Sūta Goswami warns about in the very beginning of the Bhāgavatam. He tells Parikshit Maharaj, of course, Sūta Goswami, who's more detached than him? The recent styles, he's not into it. It's like, do you roll your cuffs up? It used to be long baggy pants in the 80s. Now it's like they're so short, they come up to your ankles. Like, what happened? Did you put that in the dryer? So no, that's the style now. But Sūta Goswami and those who follow him, they don't really care so much. It's like, just wrap a piece of cloth around and get going. So Shukadev is how did I get there? I interrupted myself. Huh? Dehapatra. Thank you. Dehapatra kalatradeshu atmasaini sasatsapi tesham pramato nidhanam pashyanapina pashyati. So he says, and I think that's Mukharvin, no? Okay, 1 second. So he says to Parikshit Maharaj, so all these ways in which you think you're invested in the material world and it's a good investment and you're protected, he said, forget about it. Nothing's going to protect you. And the best person for this, while we were having our programs at our home for 16 years, you'll remember, was Satyadev Prabhu, because he drove an ambulance. Now, if you want to be in a warlike situation, even while you live in a very opulent place like Silicon Valley or San Francisco. San Francisco, by the way, is what's called a luxury city. If you're a brand new buyer, you can't buy anything in San Francisco because it starts maybe for a little shack at about $5 million. Maybe you'll get an apartment with, that you have to fix up for $5 million. It's not a place where you can start. And in that environment, or in Silicon Valley, where all the biggest movers, shakers in the world are, venture capital, they got money waiting for you. It's a war zone if you go on an ambulance, because every day there's some carnage. And oftentimes, people who work on ambulances, they get the same thing that people on battlefields get, which is PTSD. You can become traumatized by seeing the nature of the material world. So Satyadev Prabhu would come back to our programs, and he would like, okay, what happened this week? And he would remind us that anything can happen to anybody at any time. I don't know, it was about 10 years ago, the king or prince and princess of, where was it? Some exotic island somewhere, Conga or some far out island where they still had a kingdom. And it was a paradise. And they're very wealthy because they're princes. It was a prince and a princess, I think, ready to inherit the throne. They were driving on the 101, same way I drive home, and some rambunctious person behind the wheel, weaving in and out, clipped the back of their truck. They rolled over and died. But they were prince and princess, and they had all this money. So this idea, you should take that there's no shelter here in the material world, even if you marry a baroness. It's like, I'm going to marry a baroness, and then I won't worry about life. No, you still have to worry, and it's a war zone here in the material world. So that's Sūta Goswami teaching us. So pratyaksham aitiyam, hear from the wisdom that's passed down just from people talking and the history of the world. And anuman, just figure it out. Do the math and see that, you're not going to last here in the material world. So vikalpatsa virajite, it's not a permanent place. Okay, Mukaravind and then Krishna Saka. Sorry, Mukaravind. I hope you didn't disappear.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Maharaj. I just thank you so much for narrating beautiful pastime of Lord Varahadev. I just noticed that he appeared on Shravan Dwadasi. That is like 3 days before of our Bhadra Purnima, which is 9th September. It's like such a nice, like Lord Vara is, Vamandev is appearing and then arranging all the facilities for us to to do the Bhadra Purnima campaign.
Now, I didn't pay Mukaravinda to say that. He's spontaneously attracted to Sankirtan. But it did remind me of something I wanted to say, because I had this revelation this morning driving here while talking to Loka and Vidarbha. So, and here it is. There's spots on this earth right now that are the biggest Sankirtan spots in the history of the world. You know where they are? I can name a few of them for you. There's Hrishikesh. Has anybody ever been to Hrishikesh? So Devavrata Prabhu came to me in Vrindavan during February. We were there, and he was just there, and he said, and Navina Nirada Prabhu has said it many times because he goes there regularly, and he said, this is a huge Sankirtan spot. All the kinds of people that we're looking for, like seekers, they hear about Hrishikesh, somehow they figure it out, they go up there, and they're just looking around where to find the actual thing. So Hrishikesh, that's a huge Sankirtan spot, if we can send anybody there. But it's not a bad idea if we could set up a permanent table and then just rotate devotees through there. There's a few more. You want to hear where they are? Well, another one, it's already covered, but I'm just giving an example of where these places are on the Earth planet right now. Tirupati. Tirupati, of course, they have enlightened management there, and Tirupati is ISKCON, highly elevated souls. And they have perhaps one of the best spots on Earth. Do you know why? Because every day of the year, 365 days, the most pious people on earth, just coming to see Balaji and wait in line 8 hours to have a 2-second darshan, are coming to Tirupati. And so they have a gigantic book room because they can't keep up with the demand. They set up a few tables, and everyone loves them there because, like, hey, you're selling the Bhāgavatam? Please, have at it. And even they said that at Fisherman's Wharf. When I got kicked out of my airport during the Gulf War, I had to go down to Fisherman's Wharf, and everyone had to have a permit to collect down there. But when the police saw we were distributing books, I said, hey, buddy, if you can sell those, you don't need a permit. And then another one said, yeah, that's what you should be doing, you guys. And so you got Hrishikesh, you got Tirupati. How about Jagannath Puri? It's the same thing. Nobody's doing Puri. And I just talked to Gauranga Prabhu the other day, and he's zooming in on Puri, that this could be like the biggest Sankirtan spot in the world. I've been talking to Madhavananda about it. He's working on that. But if we had a permanent party there, you could just rotate people through. We come up with a grand plan for working Hrishikesh, for working, of course, Tirupati's taken. And then Loka and Vidarbha, of course, I don't want to blow their spot and send anybody down there, but they said Bali is a huge place. Western tourists come there by the millions every year, and they're very open. And Loka and Vidarbha Prabhu are looking to set up a permanent spot there so people can be constantly distributing books. Anyone want to go to Bali? Nah, I don't like Bali. So now, if we do a search around the map, we can find many of these places, and if we have a rotating Sankirtan party, or at least a network that we put together so everyone's sharing information and best practices for these places, and we get them fully stocked and full of devotees, then this is a kind of circulation system. Like in the body, I was mentioning this morning, you hook in an IV. The blood of the world is all contaminated now. So we have to hook up an IV. Govindacharan Prabhu said that's the IV in ISKCON of Silicon Valley. We have to hook up an IV. And the more we can inject this transcendental knowledge and then have a place where people can repair to cultivate it, where this is happening in various places around the world. But the more you instantaneously have a place where people can come in and cultivate the knowledge and live in a kind of ashram situation, or at least have a retreat, then they can start to actually practice Krishna consciousness. What do you think? Prabhu, he's got another spot. Go ahead.
When you were mentioning about Puri, I was just remembering, we 3-4 years back, we had a bus stop in Puri, and we were doing books. We were entering into the buses of the visitors, and we did huge that time. Mukhan Prabhu and Shraddha Mataji, they all led the team.
Yes,
So
it's one of the it's one of the qualities of one of these huge spots that I'm thinking about, is that buses are coming in all day long. And if we can network and make friends with the local authorities and show them that we're doing a good thing for society, and the money's going back into book distribution, and we're trying to help and so forth, and then we get permanent spots there, he's all lit up, I can see. Where's your wife? I think you're going on a trip. It's a serious thing. If we put energy into that, building an infrastructure around the world, let's identify these places wherever they are. Yes, they're covered locally, and we'll make sure we support that and bring light to this idea that there's these super spots, we'll call them, around the world. And then we can figure out how to support that, either locally or with international help and things like that. And that will be an infusion in the bloodstream of the world. Just thought I'd throw that in. Yes.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for the beautiful Bhāgavatam class. Actually, when you said you were distributing in New York and you got more, they said, move along, so we were distributing last weekend in Lake Tahoe, and we were moving along, and we did huge on the first day, and I thought I figured it out. Now nobody can kick me out. And the next day we started and just entered, there is this what is the name? Sopping Street. What is the name, Prabhu? Gondola. Yeah. So so we were just moving along in gondola, and then next day we just started, and there was this store lady, and she just came, and so many people were taking books from us, and then she said, leave, you can't move along also, read the sign. They put the sign that sidewalk vendors are also not allowed to move also, so what to speak of table, even not moving, but we figured out another spot and we did use there. But
yeah, it's always important to have a plan B, because you can never put all your energy in one place or one technique or anything like that. Always have to be looking where do I go for a backup? That's really important. And it's one of the great experiences of being out in public and book distribution and so forth, and just seeing the various reactions people have, and also learning to tolerate being ignored and being, what is it? Kicked out. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that when you encounter these kinds of friction that inevitably come, but not that much, everybody, not that much. It's 99%. There's only a little bit of that just to teach us something. That he said you get spiritual blood, chid rakta, for your chid sharira. He said to his devotees, don't worry about this if you're criticized, neglected, or kicked out. He said, when you do this on behalf of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then you get spiritual blood in your spiritual body. You're making an investment in your spiritual body. That's kind of nice, right? Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I was just thinking that, for several years, Malini and myself, we always think that we'll take an RV and go around US distributing books. And one day, and more importantly, there are different prasadam sites which are very famous, like New York has donuts devotees make. So we are like making sure we reach there. But now we are talking about Rishikesh. Ramarangi Mataji is saying, maybe we should go to Rishikesh now. Maybe, as you said, maybe we can take turns, 1 month every year, different devotees can go and... be part of the whole distribution.
Yeah, worldwide Sankirtan party Prabhupada wanted. He wanted to take the devotees all around the world for Sankirtan. So let's look at a route, get a good travel agent, and we can do that. Also about vans and traveling, I think we should have a robust grihasta traveling Sankirtan party. It means that we can have the infrastructure here or the vehicles. We've been talking about this. We should draw up some plans so that we have several vehicles that grihastas can go out in groups. You don't have to go out forever, but you go out for a while. At least start with overnight, a couple days on a weekend, and go out and see what it's like to wake up in the morning and just be on Sankirtan already and hear and chant, away from everything else. There's no other consideration. When I was writing my book, I was talking to Gunagrahi Maharaj. It was such a great interview because he was such a stalwart devotee for so many years and brought hundreds, thousands of new people into Krishna consciousness. Always innovating he was. And so he said when he first got involved in management, he felt overwhelmed. And he asked his GBC, what should I do? And he said, at least every couple of weeks you should go out on book distribution. And he said that solved the problem. It's kind of like Giriraj Maharaj's story about the big Harinam at Bombay. So many problems, but they have the 24-hour kirtan. And then it's like, I forgot about what those were, but I'll maybe remember them next week. So if we come up with a scheme for having, we can start with a van and then see how it goes, whatever size is needed. And we have one, Navina Prabhu's van. He said, others can use it, but we'll come up with other sizes, whatever anybody needs, so that there's a growing fleet of vehicles so that grihastas, youth, anybody can get on a schedule. That's from England. Can go anywhere and just do book distribution and then come back and have the experience. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best idea you ever heard and 1 being like, forget about it, Vaiśeṣika Das, what do you think? 108? You guys want to go? He wants to go. Look at Nitai's fired up. Haribol. Traveling Sankirtan. You'll go, right? And Hansapriya? She'll definitely go. Don't tempt her. She'll go out there. Yes, and there's one on the board. I think it's Subhadra, from the hat. We'll call on you in just 1 second.
Actually, I just also want to throw it out there.
What?
I just want to also chime into the Rishikesh part.
Yes.
We do have an ashram already existing,
yes.
And very good friend of ours, Radhakund Prabhu and Hare Krishna Prabhu, who is managing the center there. And they would be happy to, accommodate and host. And I just thought that in Silicon Valley, we have very much benefit of having a sabbatical. And one of my precious moments was in 2019 when I took my sabbatical. I went out with Vaiśeṣika Prabhu for a whole month. In 1 week, we did Ahmedabad Sankirtan retreat.
I remember that.
And I spent another 2 weeks in Yatra. And in that Yatra, also we did the book distribution in the Jagannath Puri railway bus station and right in front of the temple. So I just want to throw it out there. I know Malini and Sukeshwari were talking about Rishikesh. We can arrange. I'll do all the logistical part. I volunteer. And same goes for the Sankirtan bus. And I remember as a kid growing up in the temple, even the families used to go out. We used to go out. And as a kid, we had a fun time because they would entertain us with the ice cream in the evening. So it's possible. I mean, I personally have grew up in downtown all summer evenings, just being at the book table, and they used to have a Gornitai in the back of the bus. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of good memory, and I just wanted to also share that I used to think when I was in college why my parents took us out, but actually that made us a street smart. That's the Prabhupada's movement. So it's not just the educational, but also beside the educational, there's a lot more is needed. And I think it's a wonderful idea for those who are going to have the kids to actually just get trained up right now yourself, and then, expand the bus movement, Sankirtan bus movement. And ISV is a base for that, so we may start from here.
Okay, so Hansapriya has ratified. Harival. And if anybody's street smart, it's Hansapriya. That's music to my ears. So this is life, the life of a community when we had taking risk and going out into the great unknown together and see if you can't get kicked out. Okay, we got Subhadra, then Kunjasevika, then Radhakripa. Subhadra's ready to go on traveling Sankirtan. She's already going out every day to Balboa Park. She wants to get on a bus. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to your story about Guru Maharaj. When he was in Vrindavan, getting near to leaving his body, I was communicating with him on WhatsApp. And he also mentioned that when he was a manager, he couldn't stand it. So the way he relieves his mind and enlivened himself was to go out every day for like a short time in the afternoon, just maybe even for an hour. And he was encouraging me as a grihasta to go out every day just for a little while after work, maybe half an hour, an hour. And anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
Confirmed. This is important. Yeah, and so every day, just a little bit, something helps keep us vital. Kunjasevika.
Hare Krishna. It's really nice to hear Gunagari Maharaj's name being mentioned time and again, because the reason that I'm sitting here today is because of him as well. So I also wanted to be the first one to sponsor that Sankirtan van for our temple.
One Sankirtan van. So we need to line up the routes and who might be able to go out when. We've got Radhakripa Prabhu, and then we have. Okay, go ahead, Sugeshwari.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, to add to your point about other spots which typically I found very useful is in certain areas when there is a Bhāgavatam Saptah in your own areas, which is a weekly Bhāgavatam lecture series which happens for any reasons. So I found in our village, there was a Bhāgavatam Sabha when I went actually last time to India. And I found that I was in Vrindavan, and I found that on the Sunday there are going to be a completion of Bhāgavatam Saptah. So I took 2 boxes of, Bhagavad Gita's to, around 80 books, and there were probably 100 people. All of them lined up. And then they knew there's a Prasadam also from Vrindavan. I mean, they were so appreciative. So I was just thinking about such spots is very easy, and everybody is already in that mood, so it's pretty easy to go there.
Okay, so what we need to do is develop a criteria for what is a super spot. And there'll be certain elements that define it. It has to reach a certain threshold. And then we'll make a map of the whole world and keep adding on the super spots. And then we can have a tour that goes around, or the locals can become more aware of it. What is a super spot? Who wants to just work super spots for the rest of their life? 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, say yes. Yes. Yeah, when somebody gives an opportunity, just go yes, and then Lord Nityananda will arrange it. Yeah, so we'll identify super spots, and then we can focus on them. You can't hit a target you can't see. So when we define these targets and understand like how to be prepared for them, then we can hit it. And it's definitely a way by going for the cream that we can expand and get more people involved. Sukeshwari.
Prabhu, I was just thinking that since we have the idea now and most of the kids and everybody is off for summer, so this actually would be a good time. We're going to go to LA anyway. Several of us are going in the bus. So I was just thinking maybe a day or two, doing...
Add an extra day or two on the way there.
And explore that thing of distributing more number of books. Just a suggestion.
I think it's a great idea. Just add books to any excursion. Just like with our yatra, when we did our yatra, then the first couple years, then we thought, this is too much like National Geographic. Just go and look around, take a few pictures and come home. But it should be a Sankirtan yatra, so everyone feels like we're doing service wherever we go, do service to the Dambasis and the people who visit there by giving out books. And it makes a completely different experience, right? Right. Okay. So,
Hare Krishna, Guru
oh yes, please, go ahead, Dhanavari.
Thank you. Please accept my humble obeisances.
If anybody else has their hand up, please let me know about it, because I can't see the screen that well.
Jai Srila Prabhupada, thank you. Very nice idea. It makes me very happy. I just want to share something small. Last week we went spontaneously, myself and other two devotees. We went to an Indian store, grocery store, and we didn't know, we had lots of books been sitting there, Indian languages, so we thought, let's just try. And first we went to the apartments, and it was long weekend, it wasn't a big success, but then we went to, like you said, plan B. So we went to, we had a plan B to go to Indian store, and we had a huge success. In 1.5 hours, we collected like $400 of Lakshmi, and all the languages of all the books really went well, and we just had lots of fun, and we are going again today somewhere else. So thank you so much for inspiring, and all of you. Hare Krishna. And today, Guru Maharaj, the Urdu books, language in Urdu books, we are going to go to that spot where the Urdu-speaking people are going to be there. So hopefully, please pray for us. Haribo.
May you do huge. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Who's doing Arabic books now? And what's our goal for Arabic books?
We placed a lot during the December, and we are now not going to stores because we want to wait for them to be, wait for it to be refilled. But we just found out there are some festivals that are happening in August. There are 2 festivals that Ananda Kishore Prabhu sent. So we will go to those 2 festivals in this August to give out Arabic and Farsi books.
Okay. And as much preparation as possible to look into the ways that people are attracted culturally. If there is a flip book that had the great personalities that have been good thinkers who are part of that culture, maybe it crosses over some appreciation. People need to see that besides just the book, which is really an eye-opener for them to see, we took the trouble to translate it, but try to find out the icons in the culture, find out more about the culture, get an education and see where the places are that are revered and the people, and find out what's the route, the fastest route to their heart to be able to take a huge stack of Arabic books and try to stack them up so that we do multiple copies all at the same time. And please keep in mind, for those of you who actually keep score about things, is that you get many more points, sometimes 7 times more for an Arabic book than you do for a regular book. There's a reason for that. My godbrother, Satyanarayan Prabhu, back in the early days, around, I forget, early 1970s, he went to Prabhupada and had a short audience with him, and he said, Prabhupada, I'd like to become, and he wanted to become a doctor. And so he thought to get Prabhupada's acquiescence, he would say, Ayurvedic doctor. And so he said, Prabhupada, I'd like to be an Ayurvedic doctor. And Prabhupada said, oh, the real medicine is in these books. He said, just try to work with my books. Actually, there was more to it, more subtlety, because he sort of didn't react to that at the first time. And the second time, he gave him some indication, just work with my books as the real medicine. And that's what he's done throughout his life. And when Prabhupada didn't give him much time or attention, just a slight indication. But then when he did take to distributing Prabhupada's books, and he went out with Vaiśeṣika and a few other devotees who were on the library party, and they had distributed books to some Muslim universities, which Prabhupada had done himself also. Before he had a movement, he was all by himself. And he came back to Prabhupada and told him that we had gone to these Muslim universities, and they took standing orders, which means the books weren't even written yet, but they ordered all of them whenever they'd come out. And Prabhupada then became wide-eyed. And he said, anyone of my followers who distributes books like this to the Muslim-speaking world, I take the dust from their feet and I put it on my head. And so Satyendra Prabhu points out, he didn't say that about any other service. So that's a niche within a niche. Book distribution got his attention, but that Arabic book distribution or book distribution within that culture really got his attention. And so there's good reason for giving extra energy for preparing for that, because Prabhupada liked it. And also, there was a time at which the Iron Curtain was so strong, and there were devotees who were going behind the Iron Curtain at risk of their lives or lifetime imprisonment to distribute transcendental literatures, including our beloved Devamrita Swami. And they just spent time thinking how to get books into the country. You want to know one of the ways they did it? Yes. This is a real innovation. They found this bridge that cargo ships would go under in order to get behind the Iron Curtain. So they'd get on the bridge, and when the boat was going over, they timed it by practicing how they could drop little packets and they'd land on the ship. So besides smuggling books in, no one knows if those actually made it or not, or what happened to them after they were on the ship. But that's the extent to they went of distributing books in those forbidden places. And as Devamrita Swami said, at the time when Prabhupada said even a few books that are distributed here, it could change the whole environment, the devotees thought, well, that would require a lot of faith because it looks like it's indelible. It's never going to change. And they had full power over everybody, the people in the government. But then some miraculously, and even historians aren't really sure what sped up the drop of the wall and everything like that. One can only hear the echo of Prabhupada's words that this transcendental knowledge distributed in these various places will have this kind of effect. And we do know the history. When people got a hold of it, it changed their lives and they became messianic about distributing it. Good word, messianic. So we should do so also. This is what the life breath of the Sankirtan movement is thinking how to do good for others. And the way to deliver that, one of the best ways is through the written word, written kirtan. It can go everywhere. It gets packaged up as a little delivery system that goes all over the world. Okay, last point on the board, and then we'll take a few announcements. Tadiya Seva, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dhanavad Pranam, all glories to Prabhupada. So I was just thinking when you said Tirupati and Rishikesh and Jagannath Puri, there is one famous place in South India. It's coming up really big now. It's called Yadadri. This is where Lord Nrsimhadev appeared in a cave in 5 different forms. It's becoming very big Tirtha Yatra now. Devotees in Hyderabad and Secunderabad can explore for Sankirtan.
Okay, put it on the map. Another one just came to my head is Govardhan Hill at Kartik time. if we can, of course, a lot of these places, believe it or not, you definitely have to get a permit, because even in Govardhan, outside our own ashram, when we set up tables, they wanted to have a little, they wanted us to get permission. So looking into it, I think, is really important, and just stimulating conversation and then finding out the ways and means that we can test it out. And I'm sure there's super spots all over in America, and they're probably way underutilized. But let's research it and see what we can do, and hook up the IV from ISV.